Welcome to my podcast, What the Fuck, Spirit. If you made it past that name, this is going to be the podcast for you. This is going to be a no holds barred, no bullshit, open and honest conversation with Maria Leggett, and that's me, about all things spiritual. It's time to begin talking in an open and honest way about what spirituality is and what it is not. We're going to discuss all things woo-woo, witchcraft, spiritual, queer spirituality, medium versus psychic, energy healing, light work, shadow work, and any other bullshit that people want you to believe because it keeps them comfortable. It is time for you to grow. Let's go. Hello and welcome to my show, everybody. I'm so excited today to have Barbara with me, and I have an amazing bio that I want to read for all of you because I want you to know everything that's super important about her. So here we go. Barbara is an award-winning author, composer, and spiritual psychic reader since 1987. Barbara With has been conducting and documenting thousands of channeling sessions around the world, speaking the voices of Albert Einstein and a party of other angelic peacemakers from beyond the grave. They say they are here to help us to create world peace, one person at a time, starting with self. Together and her associates, the Psychic Sorority, Barbara and the party have created Conflict Revolution, which is a registered trademark, as a solution for world peace, one person at a time, each of us starting with ourselves. Barbara is currently on a world peace tour, bringing Einstein and Conflict Revolution around the world to inspire a new vision for global change now. Like, literally, is she up my alley or what? So I love this, Barbara. I'm so excited to hear from you. So please tell us about yourself, things that you want us to know, things that you think are important about you.
Well, first of all, Maria, thank you so much for having me. I am on this world peace tour right now, and I think I'd like to kind of start backwards. Going backwards is that this peace tour, it's about looking for the participation of the willing, we're calling it, to take part in a worldwide nonviolent action to end the age of war. And this peace tour has been decades in the making, as I began channeling groups in 1993. And the whole story of how I became a channel and how I started channeling groups is something that we can get into. But I think the meat of what happened was when I started to do these groups, and with these two women I had just met, who we called ourselves the Psychic Sorority. And I had been a channel, and my mentor who taught me was an antenna. That's all she was. Mm-hmm. She didn't talk to dead people or angels. And so that's what when I started to channel, that's how I felt. So when I did the first group and the girls said, well, who are you? To whoever was speaking. And they said, you can call us angels. And I was very skeptical because I'd never heard of such a thing. I mean, I had heard of such a thing, but not for me. I was an antenna. But the three of us talked about it, and we decided that the information that they were giving us was so profound and so divine and compassionate, and it was changing our lives for the much better, that we didn't care. Kim said, I don't care if it's the Easter Bunny, because what they're telling us is making a big impact. And what they said was they had this revolutionary new way to resolve conflict that they were kind of cooking up in the heavens, and they needed human beings to actually test it on real life conflicts to see if it would work in the way that they were imagining that it would. Now, I don't know what we all thought 30 years ago when we were told that, because we were just all in, right? Because it was so, you can imagine, it was so exciting and so amazing. And every time we would have a group, they would deliver this incredible information about this new way to approach conflict in order to, I think, ultimately self-love is what it was about. But in order to self-love, they were suggesting there's some internal conflicts that need to be resolved first. So inevitably, you put three people together and they're going to have a conflict. And in the middle of it, classic conflict, you, and you. I said, wait a minute, let's get the transcript. And we had just channeled a group that we call Convolution because it was what they told us to call it. And in it, they said something that made my head just snap back because I was very creative, but I was a rageaholic. I was constantly victimized by everything and everyone. And so when they said, we got the transcript, and I said, here's the sentence. If you are involved in a conflict, the root of that conflict is within you.
Yes.
And in that moment, when the moment that I channeled it, my head metaphorically snapped back and I thought, oh, what does that mean? What is it? What's inside me that's what? But when we were in our fight and I said, wait a minute, let's get this. And I read that instantly like that. The three of us, everything just shifted. Like we took our breath in and we all started to cry. Mm-hmm. And I came back and said, here's what I can be doing better. And Kim said the same thing, I need to really focus on blah, blah, blah. And it was so remarkably different than anything we had done before, especially the way it was done. Like, okay, these angels are kind of real, I guess. But what was so profound for me was afterward, the responses and what was manifesting in my world. So the biggest one was I'm a singer. And at the time I had this regular gig at a beautiful hotel in downtown Minneapolis. And there was a waitress there who would not speak to me if my life depended upon it. She was so cold and never said a word and never smiled. And I went into work the next day and she was all over me. Hey, do you like Patti Smith? I've got some tapes I'd like to give you. And she put $20 to feed my tip jar. And she was just so kind and sweet. And I thought, something's happened. When I resolve this conflict in this way, it affects how matter manifests, basically.
Yeah.
And so those were the really beginnings of conflict revolution. And we went on to publish our first book, 1997, Diaries of a Psychic Sorority. And it's just that. It's our diaries as how we came, who we are, how we came together, all the transcripts from not just the master sessions, but we had triad sessions along the way as well, which were incredibly fruitful. And it actually ends in conflict because it didn't go away that first day. We had to continue to keep working this process with our own conflicts. And actually, I would say it was probably about 5 years ago that we all three of us came to this place. Like it's not that we don't have any more conflict. It's that we don't none of us deal with it anywhere near how we used to. Mm-hmm. And we don't have dramatic blowups. And if we do, they're quickly come back to the table. But I can't think of a one where we've had. So, but after our book came out, I had found out that I really could talk to people who had passed on and also people in Alzheimer's states and autistic people who'd never spoken before. So I had this intuitive gift and I had a literary agent and she called me one day and said there was a metaphysical tabloid in London, maybe paranormal tabloid, that was looking for an interview with Princess Diana on the 1-year anniversary of her death. And I had never thought to do such a thing. I never went to look for dead people. They always came to me, and plus a tabloid. I mean, what? So I thought, what, let's just see what happens. So I channeled by typing both the answers and the questions. And when I read it back, I cried because it was so in depth and it was so detailed with really in-depth detail about her relationship to Dodie and her kids and what happened that night. But her big message was, if everybody who put flowers in front of the palace after I died would make peace with themselves, we could have world peace. And so if we can get this interview in a tabloid where 40 million people would read it, we're thinking we can have some influence. And I was like, wow, that's brilliant. And then she said, yes, but we are not in charge. It's like, okay. So from there sprung my next book, which was called Party of 12, The Afterlife Interviews. And in that book, I found Einstein. And when I channeled Einstein for the first time, this was the voice of my channeling. This was the voice that had been coming out of me. It had a very strange I figured it out. It was sort of a Yiddish accent, even before I knew it was Einstein. I couldn't fake it when I wasn't channeling. Like I'd be going, oh, this like no. But it went all the way back to my music because I was very young. I started playing piano when I was 5. I started teaching myself and writing music when I was 12. And I felt that presence. And then it sort of made sense to me that the angels, were probably angels, wink, wink, but probably he was in on all this all along the way. And so I did a book in 2005, 100-year anniversary of E equals MC squared. I thought, I'll just do a little book for Einstein, see what he has to say. And what happened was he delivered to me a unified field theory, which is something, A, no one's done yet, and B, he couldn't do in his life. It includes a map of human consciousness. And that map of human consciousness demonstrates how energy interacts, or human intention and consciousness interacts with energy to affect the manifestation of matter. Mm-hmm. And the third thing that was the most mind-blowing for me was he gave us a scientific, quantifiable definition of compassion as the 5th fundamental force of the universe. The intelligence that uses all the 4 fundamental forces to impel the creation of matter one step at a time. And so that was a very profound experience because I'm not scientific. All I ever wanted to be was a rock star. I dropped out of science. I didn't know math. But here was this incredible theory. And I put that book out, Imagining Einstein, Essays on M-Theory, World Peace, and the Science of Compassion in 2007. And that led me around the world. I appeared at an event in Taos that year and was in front of 500,000 people. And I got invited everywhere to channel and teach and got to sing some as well. So in 2016, by this time, I had really wanted to create graphics of these maps, because in Imagining Einstein, I was just like a scientist, they scribble stuff on napkins. So I couldn't find anybody to do it. And I just found and did them myself. And I published Einstein et al., Conflict Revolution, and the New Operating System. And that demonstrates why conflict revolution works like it does, why we should all be inspired to come and be a part of this worldwide nonviolent movement to end the age of war. Because it's simple enough that if all of us find this peace within, and if we tackle this us versus them mentality that we first and foremost harbor in ourselves and in our map of human consciousness, the natural result will be the manifestation of peace.
Yeah.
Without.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah, so that's my world peace tour. And that's kind of where I am right now. And it's so exciting because the last time I set out with Imagining Einstein, I had no idea how I was going to do it. And suddenly off I went. And I feel very much the same way. I left my home on October 15th. And have been on the road, divinely guided, teaching, training. I've been doing a ton of podcasts. It makes me so excited because so many people get it.
Yeah.
And when you hear it, when you see the unified field, when you hear about the 3 human dimensions, how it all works, people are just going ping, 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 ping. It's like, yeah, yes, whoa, this is exciting. And it's simple. It's so easy it's not easy to do, to master your ego.
Right.
But the process is so simple and it involves everything you already know. Mm-hmm. So it really is the unified field. It gets right down to our right one-to-one relationship influences the macrocosm.
I love that. It validates for me the one sentence that I tell everybody all the time, which was, you were born with everything you need to heal yourself. You don't need to look outside for all of these different things. What can fix me? What can heal me? You've got it all right here, right? What you believe you achieve. And it's really difficult when people, and I say this to my one-on-one clients, and I say it in classes, and sometimes it really upsets people, but we participate in our own victimization. Absolutely 100% we do. And I love that you had said, right, when there's conflict, it's conflict within you. I love that you channeled that, because that's exactly what it is. You're only getting upset or angry about something because you're holding something inside that you haven't worked through, that you haven't dealt with. And now it becomes other people's problems because you're in this fit trying to figure things out. And we really need to step more into forgiveness and letting go of things.
Well, and you know that if it's simple formula. What really bugs you in someone else is your clue for
Absolutely.
yourself. And that's why we call it revolution, because we don't not look at what's going on around us and the triggers. But if I'm triggered by you because you know what? You are a control freak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my clue to turn it back to me, witness, get in my witness, and start to watch where this whole system, because it's not just your intellect, these three human dimensions of emotion, intuition, and intellect all work together in a particular way when they're aligned to compassion, is what he calls it. And in that sense, emotion is this creative fuel of the manifestation of life.
Yes.
That moves up into the heart. I'm rubbing my solar plexus, moves up into the heart to become the intuition,
Mm-hmm.
which is the small imperative statement telling you the next most advantageous step for the good of the whole. It's very simple, it's small, and it's a good way to tell the difference between the intellect and the intuition is that it's a small, whether it's a statement or a impelling, the next step for the good of the whole. And it will never steer you wrong. You and all your followers know that your intuition does not steer you wrong.
No, not
But
ever.
it moves up into the third dimension where all the trouble begins, in the intellect. Because here in this field, in the head, in the intellect, which is really designed to define the separation, right? That is a cup, that is a chair. You know, there's all these subatomic intellectual messages. But what happens is the ego has been given control of actually making the move, taking the action. So if you say, if your intuition says turn left, it's not your intuition that triggers the muscles to put your hand on the steering wheel. It's the ego and the intellect.
Yeah.
And in this way, we can say no to intuition. And we do it all the time.
Oh, yes.
Your intuition tells you rest. And your ego says, I can't rest. I've got too much to do. And then makes the decision to keep going, keep going. And that's what Einstein says is where all the conflicts in the world begin. When your intuition tells you the next step and your intellect says no. And from there, that's the microcosm. Then it manifests, right? It's either going to manifest as a physical illness. We've all done that. Oh, we should be resting, but we're working too hard. Or external conflict with relationships, war, anything external. So he said it's either war or cancer, kind of a metaphor. So when we go in to revolve, to fix this conflict within us, it requires this mastery of the intellectual dimension, because this is perfect. Emotion is always going to flow.
Yes.
Intuition is always going to tell you the next step. Intellect is going to say, I'm not going to feel that. I'm not going to do that. So once we train our ego and I like to think of it as renewing it. I hate that we think we have to kill it or it's bad. It's like, no. It's the integral piece of the operating system because it has the power. So it is like one of the most, it's not the only piece. We need to develop it and grow it into a piece of the operating system that knows what it's supposed to be doing and then does it. Yes. Yes. So when you're talking about healing, Einstein takes this to an all new level too, is that We don't even need healing. We just need to know how to work the operating system. We have been told for years and years, and this is all evolution and it's good and it's progress, but everybody they think, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have enough money or I'm not going to, and they think they're feeling, and they're not. They're thinking.
Correct.
True a feeling of emotion with a capital E means we're going to feel the whole thing. We're not going to suppress the anger. We're not just going for the joy. We're going to unify our emotional field with compassion so that we can breathe it up through our bodies and get it flowing again on this in this system. And what we want to do is disconnect it from intellect. Now, part of reality is created because there's all of this emotional energy of the chair that's coming up. Intuition is saying, go be a chair. It's coming up into intellect. Intellect is flipping it around from I am a chair within me to that is a chair. So projection is a part of having the physical reality. We can't stop projecting in that way. I always say it's like the difference between quitting smoking and going on a diet. You know, you just quit smoking, but you got to keep eating. So what we understand is when I have an emotion like anger and it's coming up and intuition is probably telling me something for the good of the whole, like go feel and breathe. But my intellect is saying, you know what? Maria is a control freak and she's been really screwing with me and blah, 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 blah. That's what I create. Mm-hmm. Just as sure as that table. Mm-hmm. Or that chair, that's what I create. So go ahead.
So you don't, here's a question that I have, right? Mm-hmm. And I understand that Einstein says you don't even need to heal, you just do this. But is not the process of retraining the neural thought process, retraining the synapses to fire in a safe way, learning to let go of all of this stuff, is that not the process of getting to, which is healing, getting to that point of I no longer allow these things to affect me because I'm not going to participate in them?
Well, I think that's a good way to look at it. The way that I see it though is that let's say I'm a perfectly healthy, loving person who wants to be a car mechanic. And I go into the garage and I start pulling spark plugs. And I did this actually when I was 17, had my first car. Started pulling spark plugs. Didn't know that in a spark plug, I don't know if any of you know this or remember this, but there's this little tiny arm and it's got to be gapped at the right millimeter thing. And even if it's just this much bigger, the car runs like it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And you might think you'd have to junk it. Now, am I, as a future mechanic, do I need healing? No, I need education. And so while I absolutely agree that what we're doing that has been called healing and that we are healing, I think what Einstein's trying to say is that to say that we need healing means we're sick. And he's suggesting that we're really not sick. We're in this evolutionary step where we're learning that we've been using the operating system wrong for a long, long time. And when we start to use it correctly, things start to take off in ways that you might call it quantum healing. Maybe, you know, when people have like instantaneous kind of multiple timeline healings that go on. I think he's just trying to pull us into a kind of a new paradigm of seeing ourselves as having everything we need, even though we don't know how to run the operating system yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally, I get that. Just and I understand the entire concept. For me, right, for someone who is at the more base level, right, education is going to get them there. Because it's learning that, hey, I'm participating in my own victimization. If I change the thought process and I start to change my own programming, then in effect, and this is where I think it's literally, I think it's just a matter of words and the way that we see it. In effect, if I change my programming, I am healing myself because this is what I'm changing and this no longer exists. And then I go up another level and I learn a little bit more and I let go of something else. So this no longer exists. And the only reason why I say all of this is that in my own life, I have been diagnosed with a lot of different medical conditions, none of which I have anymore, except one that I'm still working on that one. And so I have been able to literally just let go of all of those and let go of the disease because why? It was all of the old thought processes, the old programming. And so I guess it's just me looking at it going, being able to let go of these old thoughts and, let the synapses fire the way that they need to retrain my neural process where I'm safe in this environment, I'm safe in this environment, and more things tend to shed away. So I guess in my purview, I look at that is a healing process through the education. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's the best of both views, I think. And see, and I just hear it through these from this lens because of how much I've been steeped in hearing you say, I'm changing my operating system.
Yeah.
I am no longer, and not healing like I think too, it's something about healing traditionally as something that happens with outside you go to the doctor to get
Oh yeah.
healed, there's this, yeah.
Not
So
that kind of healing.
turning inward, the
Yes.
self-healing.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's all the same thing, and whatever people are inspired by, it doesn't really, that's why there's so many messages and so many ways to say the same thing, because we have to talk to each person where they are and meet them. So
Absolutely.
many messages
Yeah,
that say the same thing.
it excites me to hear you talk about Einstein and channeling and doing all of this, simply because there is someone that I've been channeling for a while, and it has been very difficult for me to accept that this is a person that I'm channeling. First of all, I'm not Christian by any stretch of the imagination. So channeling this person and hearing their words and hearing their outlook on the world is amazing to me. And I have been, and this is where I have allowed the ego to step in, right? This is why I still have thyroid disease, which is me being afraid to use my voice. That's all it is. And so me being afraid to say, hey, listen, I'm channeling Jesus quite regularly, feeling him stepping into my body. I mean, everything changes. My voice changes. Everything is so different. And going, do you really want me to do this publicly? Because, they could crucify me. Christians are very mean when it comes to Jesus.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And it took me a long time to come out of the closet. I first channeled Einstein in 1998. Um, and I published an abbreviated version of Party of 12 in 1999. But in 2001, JFK Jr. died,
Yeah, I remember that.
and he became the 13th voice of the introduction of the Party of 12.
Oh, I
And
love
then
it.
I released it really in, I think, July of 2001. And Jesus is in it. I'm not at all surprised that you channel Jesus. And I wouldn't be all surprised if your vernacular is the same as my vernacular of my channeling him. But then September 11th happened.
Yeah.
And it took me a little bit of a while, but I thought, you know what? The world needs this message of peace, and I got to bring it out of the closet. And so I did my first group where I actually said, okay, we're coming out. But even then, it took me several more years and 2 more books. And at the event that I was at in 2007, I was still in sort of my apologetic mode, like, hey, if you don't think it's Einstein, that's okay. Just listen to the messages. And the
Right.
whole audience said, will you stop? This is Einstein. Stop pretending. So you go and speak, because he says in Party of 12 that he's not a Christian either. So there you go.
No, and that's exactly what he said to me. And I'm like, okay, so how do we deal with this? And it's being able to put that message out there specifically from him that I did not die for your sins. You all need to understand this. This is not why this happened. I died so that you could see someone could treat you so poorly, so badly, and you can still have compassion. You can still love them and give them forgiveness before you die so that you don't carry it with you. And I was like, well, but nobody's going to believe that, sir.
He's like, you're telling me?
Yes, exactly. So you're giving me courage, Barbara. So
Good, good, good.
I'm grateful for that because there's so much more that wants to come out, so much more that he wants to say, and I've just been the stopping block. I've been the halting block.
Yes. Well, I did a end of the year channel that's on my website that you'll give everybody the thing for. But uh, one of the things that he really stressed about 2024 was that this was the year we were going to stop standing in our way. That
Yeah.
we were going to figure out what roadblocks the ego is on a very intricate, intimate level. Because we've been doing this work a long time. People coming into it new now, I think they have, even though they might be neophytes or new to it, they have this advantage that all of this work has come before.
Mm-hmm.
And all the podcasts I'm being on, these young women, like my daughter, I don't have any children, but they could be my daughters, all getting this, all talking the language. And many of them are saying to me, if you hadn't done that in 1993, it helped set the stage for us to be here now. And they're all doing these. And you do a podcast. It takes a lot of work to do a podcast, and
It
they're
does.
just on fire with it.
It
So
does.
I'm very excited like the kids are all right. Here we go.
That's awesome. I love hearing your enthusiasm and all the things that you're talking about. And uh I know how these journeys go, and I like part of me goes, I know this is my journey, but I wish that I had been more open 30 years ago. But without the internet being what it is now, right? How do you find people? So, um how do you I know that we have the internet, it's amazing, but how do you find ways to connect with people on the same frequency and vibrational level as you to have these conversations? Because not everybody is there yet.
I think a lot has changed in the past 3 years. And the ability for us to connect on the internet is the good news and the bad news. Certainly, having Zoom through the past several years of those challenges
Hmm.
was a godsend and actually expanded my network quite a bit.
Mine too.
It's also not the same as being in person. And there's certain, as we all know, communication that goes on between physical bodies that has nothing to do with language and talk that you don't get when you're not in person. Now, I was traveling the world teaching and training, but I came home to Wisconsin in 2011 to be an investigative reporter. I founded a media co-op called the Wisconsin Citizens Media Cooperative because of what was happening in my state politically. And I spent about 12 years really off and on dedicated to that. I was still putting out the books and writing, doing my readings, but I wasn't focusing on teaching conflict resolution as much because of the other activities that I was doing. And so it's only been recently when I decided, I have this incredible, not only body of work that is effective and the answer to what we need right now, but I've got this life where I can do this. And so I just worked for about, I don't know, maybe about a year with the psychic sorority, putting together, we brought all of our work under one umbrella under Synergy Alliance LLC. I built the new website, and then I launched myself last July and have been focusing completely on this work since then. And I've done a few in-person classes for the first time in years, and it was just amazing because people are at a different level than they were even 12 years ago. And I've been speaking, doing appearances, and being able to look at people in an audience was just super exciting. And I've done a lot of podcasts that have originated in the UK. So I decided that on my world tour, that's where I'm headed. to I'll be gone for a couple of months, maybe till April, mid-April I come back, and I have places all over that I have stays arranged and meeting these people. It's unbelievable already. People rising up to say, "Hey, come here, hey, come there." And I'm also writing some letters to some really important people that I think if I can influence people with bigger influences, is just as fine with me. I don't need to be the center of attention. It's really about Einstein and this work. So I've written to David Icke. I want to write to Russell Brand and Matthias Desmet, who is an amazing statistician who wrote a book called The Psychology of Totalitarianism, and just other people that I'm being called to bring this information to. And it's really exciting to be, I laugh and you'll understand this because I say, I feel like Jesus in the sense that, when Jesus left in the morning, when he got up, he had no agenda ever. He never had an agenda, but he always ended up in the most perfect places, the most divinely guided place. Of course, he had 12 guys, helping him, but that's how I feel. I feel like I have been divinely guided every step of the way. And as soon as I get over there, big things are going to start to happen, just like they did when I left my life the last time to bring Imagining Einstein about. And so I'm very excited. And I hope that people understand, too, that this idea of a worldwide nonviolent action to end the age of war, it sounds big and lofty, but really, for people who are you and the people who listen to you who are looking to be the change, that they know that the healing begins within, that they have that power, that it's a matter of remembering that every time we do this work, whether it's conflict revolution, healing, or a new operating system, doesn't matter what you call it, every time you go inside and bring that unification and that self-love to every part of who you are, you're contributing to world peace. It's a pathway to global peace. We cannot get to global peace unless we do this. So if anything, take heart and set that intention that, today, I've got these challenges ahead, but I've got these new ways of dealing with them that Maria is showing me, and I'm going to get in my witness and I'm going to do this. And by doing this, this is what I can do to help the world too, globally. And the long term, 7 generations. We're helping the whole system evolve. And I just think it's the most exciting time alive.
It is a great time to be on this earth. It is a great time to be alive. And I know that we have a lot of really difficult things happening, but we can help control some of that. Everybody says, how can I do it? I'm just this little person. How can I change the world? Change you, change the world. That's exactly how you do it. Because when you begin to change, you then give permission for people around you to start to change as well. So make your drop in the pond, do the 7 generations. That's all you have to do for your part. And if you're called to something bigger, then follow it. Don't get behind. It's a beautiful thing. At least I think so.
It is. And people are always trying to frame it as something like a job or a task or a pathway. It's like, no, your job is to learn to love yourself.
Yes.
Period. Through everything that you get thrown.
Yeah.
And we're throwing all those things at ourselves so that our human sides can learn it.
Yeah, I love it. So if somebody were to come and see you on your world tour, what would a typical visit to see you, what happens during your tour? What would they see?
Well, there's different things that I do. In Minneapolis, I did several group channelings. So you would come and just sit in the audience, and as we ask you to empty your mind like an empty rice bowl and receive the amazing information, ask questions, and then there's always the access to the recording afterwards. That's also, if somebody wanted to come for a private reading, it'd be the same thing. And then when I do classes, I do them online. I do Zoom, and I've got another class coming up. They're free online. And then we walk you through the unified field theory and the maps of human consciousness and the scientific definition of compassion. And then we do conflict revolution. Then we when we teach that, everybody brings a conflict and we use them as an icebreaker. And then we pull apart the conflicts to see what's the intellectual piece, what's the intuitive piece, what's the emotional piece, and how we revolve it, what that means. And then you leave with an action plan so that every day you wake up, get into your witness after, of course, you say, thank you for another day of the most miraculous life I ever could have been dreamt of. Thank you. And I fully intend to make this the most magical, mysterious, manifesting day possible. Then we take our sound bite. So as I was saying, if you were really irritating me and I was so much in conflict with you because you were such a control freak, then that would be my job. Throughout the day, get into the witness, pay attention to what I'm thinking, what my intuition is saying, what I'm feeling. And when you find the conflict between your intuition might be telling you, let go. And your intellect doesn't want to let go. There's your work. And then there's any variety of ways, just like if your heart was ailing, you would do one thing. If your stomach was sick, you'd do it different. If it's your mind, there's certain things you can do to reduce the fluctuations, to redirect.
Okay.
And whether it's meditation or what we use, which I think is brilliant, is that when you're obsessive and you're obsessing on that person who's a control freak, now let's use the mind to find the soundbite. Okay. All right. So now we have the soundbite. So where are you being controlling? And right away, you may or may not get it instantly. You might have to watch and go. But the most profound transformations are made when you catch yourself, not when somebody else tells you, but when you witness yourself, own it, and then change it. That's root change. It doesn't go back after you do that. And when you do that, the people you were in conflict with either rise to the occasion and suddenly she's not a control freak as much as you thought because now you're the control freak, or they go away.
Yeah.
They end up just drifting to some other frequency that they're drawn to, and you have room now to pull in the people who are operating at the same level that you are. It works that way every single time. And so it's really exciting work, and it's good because it's hard work, right? This is the hardest work we could ever do.
It is hard work, but it is the most rewarding and the most amazing. I tell people every single day, there's no way you could pay me enough to go back into the corporate world. This is where I belong. This is what I do. Being a medium, doing the channeling, helping people, the spiritual mentoring. I would not shift my world for nothing.
Absolutely. Me too.
So if somebody wanted to sign up for your free class that you were just talking about, how would they do that?
synergyalliance.llc is the master website with everything, the psychic sorority, all our books, all the podcasts, all the events, all the and all the classes. And I also have barbarawith.com, where if you want to book a reading with me, you can go over there. There's a lot of the same stuff, my blogs. I also have, I'm on Facebook and Insta and X and all that, but mostly it's synergyalliance.llc.
Wonderful. Absolutely. So what are your social media handles so that everybody who's listening can go and find those? And of course, I'll have them posted on Podbean with the website. So if you go to WTFspirit.com, you'll be able to see all of the links and click on them. But just in case, what are
Yes. Barbara With is my main Facebook page. I also have Einstein and the Party and Diaries of a Psychic Sorority. And on X, I'm Barbara and the Psychic Sorority. And I think on Insta, I'm the Psychic Sorority. But look, check under any of them. Sometimes it's hard to Google my name because of the last name is like, you get, every, Larry went with Barbara with the family kind of reference, but you can find it. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Barbara, for being on here and sharing time with me and taking time out of your day to sit with me to do the podcast. I am so grateful. And just being able to listen to all the things that you do, I almost want to follow you around and go listen to all of the things.
Soon enough, I will make this mark that I'm on my way to make. So thank you. And you keep up the good work too. I know how much work it is to do this. And it's so important we keep these conversations going, we keep the energy flowing. And I'm excited right now to be able to be hitting a whole bunch of different great spiritual people who are working for the same goal of
Yeah.
peace.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being on here. I truly appreciate you and your energy, and I hope you are wonderfully successful on your world tour. Have an
Thank you.
amazing time. Welcome to my
Absolutely.
podcast, What the Fuck Spirit. If you made it past that name, this is going to be the podcast for you. This is going to be a no holds barred, no bullshit, open and honest conversation with Maria Leggett, and that's me, about all things spiritual. It's time to begin talking in an open and honest way about what spirituality is and what it is not. We're going to discuss all things woo-woo, witchcraft, spiritual, queer spirituality, medium versus psychic, energy healing, light work, shadow work, and any other bullshit that people want you to believe because it keeps them comfortable. It is time for you to grow. Let's go.